Hi everybody. Today our lesson is going to be on addition properties. Our big idea are patterns in addition because we're really working on how to look at the patterns that come naturally in math. Math is really one big pattern if you think about it. So today we're going to be focusing on the patterns that we see in addition, and these are called addition properties. So our learning target today is going to be, I will identify and use the properties of addition to balance equations and find missing add-ins. There are three properties we're going to be focusing on today: the commutative, identity, and the associative properties. So these are the three vocabulary words that you are really going to have a good grasp on by the end of this lesson. So let's get started. Okay, our first property that we're going to discuss is the commutative property. The commutative property is one that you probably already know. It's the fact family property. What the commutative property says is that numbers can be added in any order and the sum will be the same. It's also called the order property, which says if you're adding 32 plus 20, that's going to equal the same as 20 plus 32. The answer is always going to equal 32 plus 20. It doesn't matter what the order is, which the answer would be 52. Let's go to a little bit simpler and let's look at these right here. In our fact family, we have 10, 6, and 4. So if we combine 6 and 4, it's going to equal 10. It doesn't matter if we put the 6 first or the 4 first. It's still going to equal 10. That's a pattern that naturally happens in math. So if we were to find the commutative property for this, it would be 6 plus 4 equals 10. Or we can say 4 plus 6 equals 10. Basically, it's just switching the order of the add-ins. You're going to still get the same sum. That's the commutative property. Pretty easy. Let's look at the next property. All right, our next property is going to be the associative property. The group ring property or associative property states that the way add-ins are grouped does not change the sum. What's very important to this property are these parentheses. Parentheses in a math problem means do that part first. Basically, this is only going to happen when you're adding more than two numbers. In other words, you're going to group the numbers to add in a way that makes it easy for you. Me, I like to make 10 because I can add with the number 10. I like to have that ones place a 0. It makes it easier for me to add in my head. So the way my brain sees this is I would add 6 plus 4 first, which would equal 10, correct? And then what I would do is I would add the 19 to the 10, which would equal 29. But that doesn't mean that's the only way to add it. I could have done this. I could have taken my parentheses and I could have added the 4 plus the 19 first. If I would have added the 4 plus the 19 first, I would have gotten 23. Better be able to write my threes, right? 23 plus 6 equals 29. Still going to get the same sum. So what's important about the associative property is the grouping. So if you're adding, which is what we're doing with these, so we make sure we know that we're looking at our adding signs, right? We're going to know that the parentheses in these problems are what is the most important thing because you can group the numbers to add as your brain works. This is called the associative property. The next property is called the identity property. The zero property or identity property states that when you add 0 to any number, the sum is that number. I like to think of it as like mirror, mirror on the wall kind of property because it's pretty much a reflection of what you're adding. So if I'm adding 12 plus 0, my answer is simply going to be 12. It's a reflection of what you're adding to. Any number plus 0 is going to equal that same number. So if it's 234,681 plus 0, guess what your answer is? 234,681. I think most of you already knew this property, but we needed to point it out so you can identify it and have that vocabulary word to go with it. let's use those properties in a situation. Now, let's go ahead and we're going to be looking at numbers 1, 3, and 5 and do these together. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to look for the pattern in the equation, and then we're going to identify that pattern through the name of the property. So if we have 36 plus 22 and 22 plus 36, what does that equal? Well, is this equation balanced? We know it is because it has the same thing on both sides. The only thing that changed was the order. So this makes this the commutative property. I'm going to put a C for commutative. It doesn't matter if you add 36 plus 22 or 22 plus 36. It's the same thing. That's the commutative property. What would the answer to this problem be? That would be 58. Good. Look at number 3. Number 3 says 64 plus 0 is 64. So what is that property? That's simple. That is the identity property. 64 does not lose its identity. It keeps its identity when it's added to 0. Look at number 5. Hopefully the first thing you notice is the grouping, right? My brain would do this over here, this side first, because guess what it makes? It makes 10, right? 10 plus 6 is 16. That's easy for me to see. Look at this other side. This other side has me adding 8 plus 6 first, which is a little bit harder for me to do. I have to stop and think about it. That is 14. And then 2 plus 14 is 16. It's balanced because 16 is on both sides. What property makes this balanced? That is associative. Okay, you're going to finish numbers 2, 4, and 6 on your own, and then you're going to do the bottom of the page, finding the missing add-ins. Bring that back to class tomorrow to share with your friends. Have fun.